right. Welcome to our March presentation, March 2024. The Tavern in the Town, which because it is St. Patrick's Day, and because Branchville has been known to maybe have a few too many bars over the years, and because the Third Base Pub has come to an end as the Third Base Pub, we decided we'd go this route. So it was known long ago that Branchville, this is a quote from Reverend Alfred Ketchum in the early 1850s, Branchville is a very godless village and singularly given to drunkenness and kindred evils. And that's why he needed to have a church built here. So this is just one of the reasons why we have this godless village. It all started here in the Van Orden building. This woman is Anna Utter Van Orden. There's a display of her in the right on the opposite wall here. She was a sharpshooter. Who knew? She's like Annie Oakley, but she's a sharpshooter. But she married Norman, thank you. She married, Nelson Van Orden. And they had children, and this is one of their kids, and this is Carlos Nelson. He's born in 1906. The barber poles are where he's standing, there. And this was their confectionery store, and next door was, this was a barber. But these are the two sides of the Van Orden building that are the beginnings of this bar that I'm about to talk about. This guy, Carlos Nelson, had a boy, Carlos Harold. Carlos Harold was born in 1931. He was interviewed and he wrote a letter, I think he mailed it to you, Bill Bathgate, memories that he had of growing up and what this building was to his family. So there's a few pieces of information there that are going to be helpful. This is the Van Orden building. Oh, you know what? I want to fix that screen. I thought it was good, but it's not.
Yeah, it's right next to the,
It's the site of China One, which I took a picture of today, but I didn't get it on the screen, so you just have to all drive by China One. This was China One, right here. This was the, this is a blow up of the same picture. I stretched it out. It's difficult to see, but there's a second floor porch. It's a 3-story building, which is a big deal. And in front of it, or to this side of it, this is the D.L.B. Smith grocery store. All right, it's wooden structure. There's an alleyway between these. This is the side of the Van Orden building, and this is the end of the D.L.B. Smith grocery store, which then became Selective Insurance. And that is the alleyway right in there. What I wanted to point out, which I find fascinating when you drive by it, if you look up above China One, there's a big brick wall that is nothing. There's nothing there. It's just a brick wall. And I always thought it was the wall of the Van Orden building, but it is not. It's more interesting than that, and I do this a lot. I make things up because it makes sense to me of why things are the way they are today. So this is the Van Orden building. This is the old D.L.B. Smith. This is the Van Orden building. This is the the brick structure of what then was Selective Insurance, Selective Risks Indemnity Company. And the Selected Risks building, that was D.L.B. Smith, the roof of it is right there. But he built that brick wall up above the roof of the Van Orden building. Mrs. Van Orden, the Mrs. Van Orden at the time, was so angry with him. She was one of many people who called him damn lazy bastard because he was mean. He built a wall up above their building to block out any light, to do whatever he could do. He built it right up against their building, and there was no zoning in that time. You couldn't go yell at whoever's zoning down here now. But so I think that's just fascinating that went up there. The other thing you need to pay attention to is these are the two sides. This is the side closest to the D.L.B. Smith building. There's the Methodist Church. Wait till you hear about this. You ready? Okay. These are from Carlos H. Van Orden. For some years, my grandparents had a confectionery store in one half of the building, probably the left half. My earliest recollection was Mrs. Howell's tap room on the right and Jesse Harris's Branchville Insurance Agency on the left. There were two problems that caused a lot of contention over the years. The first was the occupancy of a tap room on the right side of the building. This was originally operated by Mrs. Howell and later by a Paul Franek. Is that going to be any relation to you?
Probably wood pile.
Okay. Before he relocated to the tap room, his tap room to Mill Street, the town government, at the insistence of the Methodist Church down the street, through ordinances, tried to close down the tap room. This happened on more than one occasion. Every few years, someone would measure the distance from the front door of the church to the taproom door to see if the distance was greater than what the local ordinance provided. That battle went on for years. Mrs. Howell and Paul Franek always attempted to open the left side of the building as well, but after the Branchville Insurance Agency relocated, but that never worked out. And it is probably this ongoing effort by the church that encouraged Franek to move his taproom to Mill Street. So that was an issue. Now, from a historical blurb that I found written by Lou Odell, this is even more interesting. This Anna Howell, Ada. She was quite the character. The repeal of the Prohibition Act brought a vexatious problem. This is Mr. Odell's words. The repeal of the Prohibition Act brought a. Is that my alarm going on?
My alarm.
Okay, good. The repeal of the Prohibition Act brought a vexatious problem to the town council. It seemed that a certain Ada B. Howell requested renewal of the liquor license for her Central Hotel situated in Broad Street. Now, I want to say this. According to Mr. Odell, it's a renewal of her liquor license, which meant, when was Prohibition? 1929? Or 1925 or 23? When was Prohibition?
33, wasn't it?
33 Prohibition?
That's when it ended.
No,
That's it ended. But when did it start? Come on, US too. Anyway.
5 years before that.
So she had her bar open prior to Prohibition, apparently, according to Mr. Odell, and I will believe him.
I do.
So that might have been this bar might have been going on since the 20s. Okay. A protest made by several persons, including D.L.B. Smith, stated that there were already enough places where liquor was sold in town and that the Central Hotel was merely a saloon. And finally, it was too near the Methodist Church. The protest did not say whether it was considered that this proximity to the church constituted contamination or whether the church members in passing might have fallen into temptations beyond what they were able to resist. After a heated controversy, the license was renewed, but the troubles were not over. Ma Howell, as she was known, asked the council to rule that she be permitted to stay open all day Sunday, because only certain hours had been allowed her, or that she be authorized to close all day Sunday because, as she said, she was troubled by drunks who drifted in from elsewhere. More problems arose in 1939. She was brought up on charges of serving alcoholic beverages to 2 minors. The council suspended her license for 90 days. She brought her lawyer to the meeting to show that even the Alcoholic Control Board did not impose so heavy a penalty. However, the suspension stood as originally imposed. So, Ada Ma.
Prohibition.
1920. So, yeah, so she had it in the teens then, if the renewal is true. So, thank you. 1920 was Prohibition.
That's why I became a Presbyterian Methodist.
Yeah.
I put a little Presbyterian in there too.
All right. See, now I have to change my 1930s thing, but whatever that she opened it a while back. And I said Anna and it's Ada, so I'll change that too. Whoever's watching this in the future, that's the wrong name, it's Ada. And Madam Queen was one of her nicknames. Ma Howell, her dog Tippy, Bill has told us this story before, was a regular at the bar. Tippy would wander down from their house up on 2nd Street, get the patrons would pour their drinks into a bowl at the bar, and he would drink it, and then he would stumble home after a nap. The saloon, as I just said, was located closer to D.L.B. Smith's side of the building. And I just read you the alcoholic blues and the notes from Mr. Van Orden. This is Paul Franic's bar, in the same place. When Ma Howell ditched it, Paul Franick opened up. It's called Polly's Bar. I'm sure that was from Polly. Polly's Bar and Grill. It says opposite the Branchville Post Office, meaning the Branchville Post Office, I'm gonna get to that picture. I can't believe did I already move that?
That was the first picture.
Oh, thank you, thank you. This is the Branchville Post Office, thanks for saying that.
Okay.
That's the Branchville Post Office. That little building, was kinda in the front parking lot of Park Place. And the Branchville Post Office eventually got purchased by Mr. A.R. Youngs, who had a dry goods shop up where the barnyard is now. And he split with his partner and ended up buying this little building and moving it down to his front yard, which is what we know as Mrs. Sutphin's house. And the little building was A.R. Young's storage facility for his dry goods. Eventually, the house gets sold and bought, and this little building is turned into a smaller house for Mrs. Young's, and now it's Mrs. Sutphin's house. She's living in the little building because her grandson, his wife, and their little baby are moving into the big house. Yes, sir.
It's just the first section of that house.
Right,
Yeah, the first section of that, where Mary lives now.
right, because the back of it has been added on over the
Yeah,
years.
restored.
Okay, so this is her front door down the street. Thanks, I forgot that.
Mrs. Howell have a stable or anything?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Mrs. Howell, Madam Queen, was an entrepreneur. And so she had some other businesses going on. On the third floor of that Van Orden house, there was a room with a working girl. And they called it the one-trick pony stable. And the patrons at the bar would they'd leave their glass on the bar, and somebody made a joke that maybe if you gone a half hour, said nobody was gone a half an hour. So they'd go upstairs and do business, and then come on back down and finish their beer or get a new one. And so yeah, that was at Ma Howell's. All right. Then we get to this one, and this man is Lou Skellinger. Name sounds familiar, but I don't know anything about him. And this is Paul Franick, and he's got quite a stash on the bar, and he served, I don't know how long he was there, but
He looks like a friend.
eventually he got fed up with all the problems with Methodist Church, so he took his business onto Mill Street. As Bev Backgate said the other day, Mill Street went all the way up into town, so it isn't necessarily like on the back end of his street where he was, so it could have been
When
uptown.
we bought our house
Mhm.
30-some years ago, we couldn't find it. And apparently what happened was Mill Street was Main Street.
Main Street, yes, yes.
And they had to go way back, and they never changed it
On the deed.
on the deed.
Yeah, yes. Interesting. So, yeah, so the streets did change names, so, and it depends where, and again, this is Mr. Van Orden telling the story too, so his recollection of what street names were is not necessarily accurate, but we'll forgive that. Bill?
Paul Franick, when he gave up the bar, even after he went around
The
bring
Mill
it
Street
down,
one, yeah.
when he gave that up being a owner of a tavern, he became a plumber, and he lived in the newcomer house on Broad Street.
Ah,
And then after that, he had a house very similar to Steve Ham's little store at Culver's Lake by the causeway.
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Remember that, Ronnie?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah.
And he lived, then Paul Franick went up to Culver Lake and lived up there?
Yeah, he
Okay,
had a son, Paul Jr., and Marlene Franick.
Okay.
right?
Yeah, he lived right up the street from Steve's place.
Yeah, yeah,
Couple doors up, yep.
yeah.
Nice. Oh, well, all the connections. All the connections. So now, Paul Franek ditches the spot, but there's an opening for a bartender and a barkeep, in the same place, and that becomes this guy. Here he is, our famous Henry Fulcrod, AKA Dave. Well, nobody seems to know why, but they called him Dave. And this is a close-up or a blow-up of this guy right here. This is, the Branchville police officers at something for the county, and the people sitting in front are the Sparta police officers. They didn't wear their uniforms. Branchville wore their uniforms, so. There's Dave Fulcrod, proprietor of Dave's Bar. So, these are a couple of guys sitting at Dave's Bar. Now, this says right here, Dave's Bar and Gilby's Gin underneath that. And there's a Seagram 7 bottle. Seagram's here. And there's just patrons sitting at the bar. Mickey, I'm gonna go back to the other pictures about your brother saying why they had the railing there. So this guy, wait, I have it here. We don't know who this man is. We can't decide who this guy is. But this man and this man seem to be the same fellow. He has his favorite seat at the bar. And his name was Red something. It's not Red Risden, but it's Red. This guy is Clyde Campbell. And this guy is Orrin House. And this guy is Harry Struble. So those are some of the patrons sitting at the bar. And I'm gonna back it up now because I just heard this story earlier today. Not a good shot of it. You can't really see it in this picture, but in the other room in the museum, this picture is here, it's a little clearer. There's an iron railing out here, and Mick's big brother had a chance to go into that actual bar when it was Dave's.
My brother was telling me that when he was young, he went in there with my father, and there was a steel rail, like a pipe rail, that separated the street from the bar. And he said they went in there, beer was a nickel. He wasn't drinking. He was young, but he said the rail was there because that would keep the drunks from falling into the street. So it at least that was his recollection of it, that he thought people would just bounce off that and not fall into it. As a little kid, he was looking at that, so.
I'm sure, it makes good sense. Good. See, that's the type of thing, I would put that together in a heartbeat.
Does that picture show the street light on the upper end of that building?
The what light?
Come down further, come down. Now, come to the right a little more. Right. Right in there.
There's a light in there?
There's a street light, the old ones we used to have in town. I witnessed ears coming out of there one day, and he walked right into the street light. He got so mad, he wound up his fist. He hit the
The pole?
hit the pole with his fist so hard that he had to go to the doctor and have his hand put in the cast.
Oh my God.
And he did it all without any anesthesia or anything. He already has his anesthesia.
Yeah.
He was drunk.
Wait, who was this guy?
Ears, little. Why would they call him ears?
Okay. Here's little, gotcha. That's funny.
I don't wanna use it properly, cause.
Sure you do.
Yeah, I do.
The other thing, that police force, that's all volunteer, right?
I guess, it was, I didn't know that.
No, they got paid for it.
He got
They got paid?
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
Guess I was wrong.
But they got
That's a good question.
a badge, uniform, and a gun.
And a paycheck.
And a
Probably
paycheck.
wasn't a lot, but it was
And they
part-time.
weren't full-time anyway.
Right,
so, yeah.
right, it was part-time. And we all knew when to behave and when it didn't matter. If there's nobody working, then it didn't matter.
Well, the one thing to do with the chief of police, Pee Wee Kinney, I mean, Mickey probably remembers him.
Oh, yeah.
Was there some people to occupy him on Halloween in the center of town? We go down here to Second Street, paint his pigs red, and then let the pigs out. Seriously.
I believe you.
They used to chase us around a lot. But they drove their own cars too.
Yeah.
They put their own little bubble on top.
That could be a whole other story, folks.
It is, it is.
The police
It's a whole
station,
lot
the
of
police
story.
department.
Yeah.
So, I guess Dave got tired of the Methodist church problems as well, and then he ends up, moving across the brook to what, the location where third base is now. Now, what I've discovered in looking at the deeds here, let me show you this first. Sometimes I tend to get ahead of myself. Alright, this is, up here is the DLB Smith grocery store. This is the bank, which is now the bookstore. Here is an alleyway where the buildings haven't touched. This is the Van Orden building. This is the post office. This is Park Place. This is the Garris Center, now Branches Antique and Lanier's. This is a barn. You can tell it's a barn because it's got the mark. It's got the big X across. It's a livery barn. And
Yes,
here's another one. This is the brook. This is Culver Brook going into Crispin Pond. This is the bridge over the brook. And this is the barn that turned into Dave's Bar, right here. Okay. This is a 1920 Sanborn map, which we have. See, this is what happens to me. I'm thinking about what am I gonna say about this program? I don't know what to say. Oh wait, we have a map right in the museum. So I went and found the map and I could piece everything together. So it was good. The deeds go like this. I went over to Hall of Records. Interestingly, and it goes beyond, it goes further back than this, but I took it from here. Mr. Canfield and Mr. Westbrook bought that property, a lot of property there. A big piece of property, and it had that barn on it. And then in 1946, Charles and Mary Canfield, I'm sure George Westbrook dumped out of the picture somehow. I don't know if he died or he sold his part to them, but Canfield sell this to, check it out, Selected Risks Indemnity Company in 1946. They owned it. They owned it for 8 years. Because Dave Fulcrod bought that barn property from Selected. Do you know where I'm going with this? It's going back to Selected. Didn't you find that fascinating? Not only that, but I have a copy of the deed signed by Jesse Grant Rowe II, who's Jeff Rowe's grandfather. And so he's getting it back. It's pretty interesting. So in 54, it goes to the Fulcrods. In 78, Henry and Harriet sell it to their son Bruce. I don't know when Henry died, when Dave died. I have no idea. Do you think he died at about this time in 78? Maybe that's why they sold it. Maybe Mom sells it to her son, her eldest son, and his wife. But I don't think his wife was on the deed. That doesn't mean she didn't own it. Deeds, like we've discovered, things don't get always transferred or written down the right way. And then in 82, it goes from Bruce to Marlon Fulcrod. So, and I don't know when Bruce died. Anyone? Okay.
I remember him passing, but I don't remember the year.
Okay. And Mickey lived upstairs. What years?
Yeah, I forget, it was before I moved into Hugo's, so, a few years, when Marlon owned it.
Okay.
There was 2 bedrooms up there and a full house.
Okay.
And then he moved out and Marlon moved out and Bucky Sanders moved in and we lived there for a while.
Okay.
And I moved out and then, I don't know who came in after that. It was convenient.
Yeah, it was downstairs. There's refreshments downstairs if you needed it, right? Yeah.
No drunk driving there.
Yeah. So there was living quarters upstairs and.
Well, that's
and
where the Fulcrods lived.
Yes, and then they ran the bar downstairs. And then somebody built that house out the back parking lot. I didn't look up when that was built, but that looks rather new, like a 70s construction, something like that. And that's where Patty Fulcrod lives now. So she's still back in there. Patty is Bruce's wife, widow. So then, in 1990, Marlon sells it to Jeff Rowe, and in 2024 sometime, it has not happened yet, but Jeff is under contract to sell it back to Selective. Selective Insurance Corporation, very much connected to Selected Risks Indemnity Company, so. I just found that fascinating, when I found this deed, I'm like, are you kidding me? This is so cool. I don't even know if Jeff knows, I didn't tell him. I didn't talk to him yet. I did go see Jeff while he was cleaning out some of the memorabilia. Oh my gosh, the place was packed. And he said, do you wanna go up and see the attic? I'm like, yep, so we're up rickety stairs, I took a few pictures. Very old barn construction, the beams, right here, this is a beam that went across the width of the attic of the barn, but it's cut back. I don't know what was there and what they decided didn't need to be structurally sound anymore, but they just chopped it off. And then these, iron pipes holding up structure. It's really fun, and then when I'm up there, I'm thinking, I better get downstairs before this comes down on me. And the hay mow doors up in the attic of the barn. It's just obviously a big old barn. It's very
supposedly
cool.
a livery stable.
A livery stable,
At
yes.
one time.
Yes. I think that's what it says on the map in there. I think it says livery, and it's got the
Well,
X.
the X is, that
Barn.
symbol's barn, but
Okay.
it might say what it was, but.
I have to look at it again.
The Canfield that had that barn, and he was the one that had the wagons that went to the original creamery on Mill Street where Who's and Fletcher were.
Oh,
All those wagons you see in the pictures lined up, they all belong to Canfield with the drivers and the teams of horses. So
that's interesting.
he was quite a businessman.
So he had his wagons go to the farms and bring the stuff in? Is that
Yeah,
how that? Wow.
and they'd have to take him back.
Huh. Cool. Well, it was definitely a barn, and it still is upstairs. So, a year after Dave purchases this property, and I don't know, I'm gonna, again, I'm making this up. I think Dave bought the barn and turned it into a house and a bar. I don't think it was that when he bought it. He's the one that created that. A year later, this happens. And, I mean, that's pretty devastating in that time and day and time. So, I wonder if Selected had insurance on them. I don't know. This is the Canfield barn that was across the brook. And it has Dave's Bar and Grill sign on the side of it, because this is the road that went across the brook right here.
So that's where the parking lot is.
And now there's a parking lot there, so, but that did not survive. This barn,
Was that the 55 flood, right?
yeah, this barn went away. Dave's, had damage, they had some undermining of the foundation, and because of the power of the water and shifting, some broken windows and things like that, but he was able to put it back together and go back to business. There's Bruce and Patty. There's a picture of the place back in the day. Now, you guys that are good car people can probably tell me about when that picture was taken, but I don't know if those are, they look like 70s cars, don't they? And it was in the Fulcron family for 36 years, between the time Dave got it, and then Bruce, and then Marlon, so it's 36 years in the Fulcrons, even though it wasn't the same person, kind of, same family. And these pictures, I have a couple of pictures like this. On the wall in the bar downstairs are these big frames with a lot of little pictures that people took with their cameras and printed up, and then Jeff put them in these big frames, so like collages of lots of pictures. So this is one of them. Then Jeff buys it, turns into the upper sports deck and third base hub. The upper sports deck didn't happen for a while. I should ask him when he actually built that restaurant upstairs, but called it the last stop before home, and they had bands down there. This is my recollection of the place. I was in there maybe once when it was Dave's, not a lot. When it was third base, I was kind of a regular, so it was the the pool tables were there, and they'd roll them off to the side when the bands came in, and I watched people get hustled for pool money here and there, and, upstairs, lots of people had special parties. I think Rotary had their things there. I mean, it was a big deal. The bar was always jammed. If you didn't get there in time, you didn't get a seat at the bar upstairs. And Jerry Van Gordon and Cheryl Howard had their seats right in the far corner where the bar height was appropriate. If you didn't get there early enough, you had to come around to this other side of the bar where the bar was up to here, and you're like the kid at the table. So.
Debbie, I remember one night, I know Carol Stars was,
Yeah.
and I made the mistake, there was an empty seat, was sitting. I think you were there, all I know is Carol said, get up and move it. I said, why? She says, if Cheryl walks in,
Yeah.
that is her seat.
That's the
I
mayorette
said, there's
seat.
nobody here.
The
Oh, I
mayorette.
right, she could get another seat. No.
Nope. Nope.
I really think we should have gotten her stool for the museum, because she had.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, it was quite the joint. Downstairs was wild. Upstairs was a lot of fun. Downstairs was wild. Jeff bought it, and in 1991, the Giants were in the Super Bowl. So these are some pictures that were in the collage as well. I like this because it has the old red bar. He refinished it, but this is the old red bar. And I don't know if I have another picture. I don't think I put it in here. The floor was red and white tiles to match the bar, so it was color coordinated. It's very important at a decent bar. And this is a Twilliger. Anybody?
Ed Riston.
I think it's Ed
Ed
Riston.
Riston.
No, that's not Ed Riston. Is it?
Oh, it's not it?
No.
Dale Decker?
Dale Decker, yes, Dale Decker. Yes,
Okay, yes,
that's
I
why I
did.
got confused, Twilliger. He married a Twilliger, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. And then
I
this is
think so.
Wayne Henson. I have no idea who this gentleman is, but he's a Mets fan, I think. And Jeff in his Giants sweatshirt, the new owner. Look at that kid. Here's a couple other pictures I found in the collage that made me smile. The father and son patron. Here's Will Gardner and his firstborn, tendon bar Billy Gardner. So,
There's a guy who hustled pool.
yes,
Oh, no.
he was,
Yes.
okay, yeah. I know what happened. They'd pretend they were drunk or stupid or something, and then they'd get somebody to put their money on the bar, and that was the end of that, or on the table. So,
What is that halftime buffet prizes?
halftime buffet and prizes, yeah, it was a Super Bowl.
During the Super
It was a
Bowl.
Super Bowl party. These are all from the Super Bowl party, so it was a big deal. And it was a big party because it was Jeff's, I mean, I don't think he owned it for more than 2 months at this point. He had just bought it, and all his friends were coming in, and so it was a big deal. I was not at this party. I don't know why, but I wasn't. Then they closed it up. After 34 years, I think he probably owned that bar the longest, maybe not longer than Mahal. Yeah, definitely. So he gets the prize.
The Falklands had it for 36.
36 years in the same family, but he was a single owner. So, and as explained, I think it's already kind of known around here that Selective is intending to keep it a restaurant. They've come before the town council to say that's their intent, and that they're going to refurbish the building and not knock it down. As I know, the original rumors were that it was gonna get knocked down and they're gonna pave Paradise and put up a parking lot, but that's not what they're doing. They're gonna keep the building. And it's my assumption, I'm making this up, but because they took that building back uptown, the old Selective building, and then refurbished that into a place for people that come to do business with Selected, so they have a hotel, because there's no hotels around here.
Right.
They're also doing the same thing with the restaurant, so that there's a nice place for their clients to come and eat and drink, so, but we'll be able to. Where we can't stay at the hotel in the middle of town, I think we can go eat at their restaurant, so. That's what I know about this. And if anybody has any other stories, speak now.
I'm not sure all select jurist stockholders would agree with this.
No. It's a lot of money,
Oh my gosh.
but it's a lot of money. But if you think about all the money that company has, they're an international company, but this is their home office and they're trying to keep the area good, I guess. I don't know. Hello? Museum visitors. They're just walking out with a few things. It's okay. That's good. Yeah, I know, I agree, they have to sell it the right way, but we have to maintain our town and maintain our clients and give them something good to do, so we'll see. And if it's a nice restaurant, I'll go if it's a terrible restaurant.
Being in construction, that brick wall.
Oh.
That brick wall was most likely put up, it was put up as a firewall.
A firewall?
And probably D.O.B. Smith, as an insurance company, would do that, number one, and maybe he was afraid that building was gonna burn down, the next door.
That makes way more
Yeah.
sense than my
That's a common-
spite wall.
firewalls are very common. Yeah.
But we liked your story.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Damn lazy bastard. Yeah, that makes more sense. And obviously it's still there. If you
Yeah.
drive by there, it's still there. And
But he did close the alley down.
yes, he did.
If he'd left the alley there,
He wouldn't have needed the,
he wouldn't have needed it.
And if you look at the original building too, he widened that building.
Yes.
Yes,
He made, yeah,
wider
Much
towards the
wider.
bank and longer
Yeah.
towards the back.
Yeah.
I saw that in one picture.
yeah. So I mean, the guy, he owned it and he's building a big business. Look at what we're talking about now. I mean, he probably had zero, you couldn't have even fathomed what his little insurance business could have turned into. I mean, it's just amazing.
Another thing you gotta think about is, not long before that, they went through the big fire. And a lot of those people that were alive saw what happened.
Yes.
So anything
Good
was a
point.
fear of fire.
It seems so long ago to us, it was 82?
Yeah.
1882 was this fire that wiped out 90% of the uptown of Branchville. So, yeah, and they were all either little kids or their fathers told them what happened, so. Their moms too. Their moms knew. So, well, very good. Any other contributions? I love to hear this stuff. Thanks for that. Mr. Construction
I just
Guy.
had a question. The Methodist Church complained about that bar, but not Park Place. Park Place is closer.
Yes, it is. Call up the Methodist, tell them.
I'm Catholic.
They do a lot of drinking in the
Which
Catholic
one?
rectory, so it's okay. Yeah, good point. I don't know.
I'm surrounded by smarty pants.
I asked the question, I know the answer.
And I have a feeling it was Ada that was the problem and not the alcohol. It was the other A involved in the story. I think the whole thing, the lady upstairs.
Upstairs business.
Yes, I think the whole thing was a problem.
Like I was telling you, the former wall packers over in Sanderson Township, when the liquor bottles would go empty, be it during prohibition or otherwise, she could go over in Sanderson and buy a gallon of homemade hooch for $1. And when these liquor bottles got down, she would pour the $1 hooch down in there, but still charge the patrons the same price as she'd always charged them. And she was a whole skinfoot, I mean, I know because she was in the family. So
Yes, he can say it because he's related to her, yeah.
There's so many stories, but
As the new historian, again, the second time around, or what, we'll work on an Ada Howell story for this. We might not have so many pictures, but we'll have stories to tell, so it'll be good. All right, well, thank you. Still time to